said, it probably sounded a little closer to Baldassare Forestieri. He was born July 8th, 1879 in the town of Filari, near the Messina region of Sicily, Italy. His father was a very successful agriculturalist who dabbled in a number of different fields, including citrus groves, olive orchards, an olive oil factory, and a very lucrative money lending business. Growing up, Baldassare took particular interest in the citrus groves, and he wanted to become a citrus farmer just like his father. However, he was the second-born son of his family, so the traditional expectation was that he was going to stay home and take care of the family business while his older brother would spend some time in the military, travel for a bit, make his own money, and then come home and inherit everything. Well, Baldassare wasn't a big fan of that idea. He knew that if he was going to make something of himself, he was going to have to get up, go out, and do it on his own. So, in the year 1901, 2 months shy of his 22nd birthday, he got on a ship, came out to America, and landed in Boston, Massachusetts. He spent his first 3 years in America on the East Coast, making his living in those areas as a subway tunnel digger. And as you can see, all this digging experience ended up paying off for him. But the thing about the East Coast is that the winters tend to be pretty rough. Lots of snow, lots of sleet, and as a man from a Mediterranean climate, he wasn't a big fan. So he knew he would eventually come out to California, especially because his brother was already living and working on the eastern outskirts of a little-known town called Fresno. So, in the autumn of 1904, Baldassare got on a train, came out to Fresno, and spent a little time here before heading on down south to Santa Clarita Valley and spending an additional 2 years working on citrus groves to get that experience that he wanted. But when the time came for him to actually purchase land of his own, he found he simply couldn't afford it. As it is today, Southern California was a little on the pricey side, so he brought his money back to Fresno and used his savings to purchase 80 acres of land right here for somewhere in the ballpark of $80. About $1 an acre, and I believe adjusted for inflation, that's only about $2,500, which was less than the down payment on my car, so a steal to say the least. He built his house right in the middle of it all, and come spring of 1906, he was ready to get started. He came outside with his shovel and began to dig past the first layer of topsoil, but that's as far as he got, because after that, he hit quite the problem. And that problem is going to be all of this tannish rock that will surround us throughout the entirety of the tour here today. This is called hardpan, and we here in Fresno are sitting on top of a sizable layer of this rock right beneath our soil. In some areas, it can get to be up to 3 feet in thickness before you hit copper dirt again. So, at the end of the day, Baldassare has spent his entire life savings on what amounts to 80 acres of concrete. It's a naturally devastating discovery, but he hires himself out as a farm laborer, digging irrigation canals and trenches to make his ends meet, while he tries to figure out what his next step should be. But his second surprise comes in the form of the Fresno summers. Now, anyone who lives here, or anyone who's been here during summer, and as we're going to be feeling today, it gets a little uncomfortable around here. 100 degrees more, 100 degrees and more each year, and in fact, 1906 was a record-breaking heat of 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And so at this point, Baldassare is simply miserable and trying to figure out ways to escape this heat without giving up and going home. As he does, his mind wanders back to familiar places like the catacombs of Sicily, the subway tunnels of Boston, even his own father's wine cellar. And it dawns on him that usually it tends to be a lot cooler underground than it is up on top. So, he swaps out the shovel for pickaxe and digs out a simple cellar beneath his house, with just enough room for a bed, a stove, and a water well that he carves out by hand. And after living in this little cellar for a while, he starts to wonder, if I can live underground with no issues, what else can? And from that one room, he began to expand, and his vision, much like the plants here, began to bloom. This room came a little later in his life, about the 1930s, and we call this the Trinity Courtyard, because of all the references to the number 3. There's of course a triangle-shaped planter in the center here. Each point is a planter in itself housing a unique tree. There are 3 concrete benches that make up each side. And in the middle is a black Morocco grapevine, over 100 years old at this point, with 3 branches coming out and spiraling around the room. Or at least 2 of the original branches do that. The 3rd one in the middle is actually a replant because the original did fall off. But even though he's a little skinny, we can still count it as a 3. He just has 100 years to catch up. But in the back right-hand corner there, we have a kumquat tree. The back left-hand corner is a grapefruit. And this one closest to the entrance is labeled as Ponderosa lemon, which is accurate. However, on the same tree, there is still a single navel orange growing in. That's growing there because this is a specially grafted tree. Balthasar was able to take one base and hybridize it to produce two completely distinct fruits at the exact same time.